But in the dark forest, a torrential rain poured from the night sky. The image of a lifeless schoolgirl appeared, accompanied by her father's words, "My daughter, I'm so sorry." His eyes were filled with remorse and grief. "I killed you!" Min Seok sat collapsed in the rain, the number 1 inch hovering above his head. Streams of tears flowed endlessly down his face. He didn't just cry once, but 99 times. He wept from self-reproach for failing to protect his own daughter. But then Min Seok got to his feet, wiping away the tears. One last chance remained. At that moment, the number 1 inch still hovered perfectly above his head. Then Min Seok gritted his teeth, his face etched with fierce determination. "Trust me, dummy. This time I definitely won't fail." Rewinding a few days, Min Seok dazedly sat up, his eyes staring blankly ahead. He was watching the news on TV. They were reporting on a zombie outbreak outside the city. Everywhere you looked, there were zombies. The world had collapsed in the blink of an eye. From her room, Dami came out and asked, "Dad, what are you watching?" She was perfectly fine without a single scratch. As soon as he saw her, Min Seok made a resolution. "We have to survive." He remembered the scene from before, Dami dying in his arms. "Dami, wake up. Please don't leave me all alone." But for a middle-aged man and a little girl, living in this world was no different from living in hell. And so, after losing his daughter, Min Seok had died by hanging himself. The very moment everything ended, the rope snapped. He suddenly appeared in another world. A radiant, godlike figure stood before him. She smiled like an angel. He had been given another chance. And now his eyes were still filled with disbelief. Min Seok awoke in his familiar room. Above his head, the number 99 had appeared. Startled, he shot upright with no idea what was going on. "I'm still in one piece. What the hell is happening?" Glancing to the side, Min Seok's eyes suddenly widened. He stood looking at himself in the mirror at his head. "And what is this number?" Right after that, Min Seok went to a room and started pounding on the door. "Dami," he urged, filled with anxiety. "Dami, open the door, hurry." Then she finally opened the door, looking annoyed. "Oh my God, it's the middle of the night. What's with all the noise? What's going on?" Min Seok rushed over and gripped Dami's shoulders. "Dami, are you okay? You're still alive, right? Dami still had no idea what was happening. "What's wrong, Dad? Did you have a nightmare?" Suddenly, he reached out and tightly grabbed Dami's wrist. A moment later, they were both fully dressed and equipped with supplies. They opened the door and stepped outside. "Oh my God, why are you being like this? Don't say anything more. Just follow me." She was confused and exasperated. "Dad, I'm so tired. Please let go of me." He didn't bother to explain, only replying coldly, "There's no time." Min Seok yelled, "If we don't go now, we'll die." Just then, a zombie with its mouth wide open lunged at him. Instantly, Min Seok was sent back to the very beginning. Above his head, the number decreased to 98, his eyes filled with terror. "I'm back again." He stared at his reflection in the mirror, horrified, and the number had gone down. Suddenly, it was as if Min Seok realized something. He sat blankly on the edge of the bed. That's when I realized. That number was the amount of lives I had left. Min Seok's hand gripped the blanket tightly. In other words, it was the number of chances I had, and I only had 98 chances left. The scene changes to a zombie getting its skull smashed in by a club. But on this 98th attempt, he once again led his daughter outside to fight the horde of zombies. In order to save Dami, I did everything I possibly could. Or during the 71st attempt to save my daughter, even if it meant doing things that went against my morals, I was prepared to do anything for her. But Dami was still swarmed by a mob of zombies ready to tear her apart. The two of them were separated. Each became food for a horde of the living dead. Even so, Min Seok still tightly gripped the knife in his hand. He struggled, stabbing fiercely at them. The number above his head showed only 52 chances remaining. Then another scene of a zombie getting hit so hard its teeth fall out. It's Min Seok. He only has 13 chances left. He was determined not to give up, always fighting to take down the zombies. With an expressionless face, Min Seok took them down one after another. He raised the weapon in his hand, and with a single slash, he cut down the living dead. Right single quote. He looked back at the zombies he had dispatched. But Min Seok's expression remained numb. Even with hundreds or thousands of chances, it was because his beloved daughter, Dami, had been infected and turned into one of the living dead. She was now walking towards him, devoid of any soul. Min Seok watched her tremble as she called out to him, "Dad, Dad, please save me." Dami's mouth opened wide, ready to bite into his shoulder. Suddenly he turned and pulled his daughter into an embrace. A weak father, like me, could only watch his daughter die over and over again. Then Min Seok raised the gun, aiming it straight at his own head. Instantly he was back at the beginning. A tear was still lingering on his cheek. Min Seok opened his eyes and the tears began to stream down his face. Looking at the familiar surroundings, his eyes became hollow. Then Min Seok shot upright. His eyes stared blankly ahead. Dami, asleep in her room, groggily woke up. She opened the door, confused. "What is it, Dad? It's so noisy and it's late." Standing before her was Min Seok, fully geared up, tightly gripping a knife. Seeing him, Dami was terrified, her eyes wide as she stared at him. Min Se-ok's expression was terrifying. "Dad?" His hand slowly reached out to Dami. Then he pulled his daughter into a tight hug. He slowly released her. Min Se-ok leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "I promise." He held Dami tightly, his resolve unwavering. "Even if I fail hundreds, thousands, or millions of times, I will survive to save you. Trust me." Suddenly, Min Se-ok frowned at Dami and shouted, "Do you understand my daughter?" This left Dami momentarily confused. She called out, "Dad!" The scene changes to the final attempt. Above his head, only one chance remained. Min Se-ok was carrying his daughter in his arm. His eyes were numb. "The 99th time! I finally found the perfect shelter. This is the Joint Military Base. It's protected by soldiers. The 5th medical team from the University Hospital is taking care of the survivors here, thanks to favorable conditions and a bit of luck. This place hasn't fallen into chaos. The children and their parents look so happy. It's truly the perfect shelter. I had lived a whole life there." Sitting in a wheelchair, Min Se-ok was before his daughter's grave. "It's been 45 years since I came here, my daughter. You've been waiting a long time, haven't you?" He placed the bouquet of white flowers down. "I had to be extremely careful because this is my last chance." Looking at the bouquet, his resolve was firm. "And now I'm certain." By now his face was covered in wrinkles, his hair completely white. "This place isn't dangerous. If we can survive long enough to get here, this place will be our final destination." Then Min Se-ok took out a gun and pointed it straight at his temple. "Wait for me, Dami. Dad is coming to get you right now." At the sound of the gunshot, he was instantly sent back to the past. This time, the father and daughter were fully equipped. Min Se-ok let out a breath. He gave Dami a serious look. The little girl looked back at him with the same determination. Min Se-ok's memories came flooding back. Right before they reached the final shelter, Dami had died and it was Min Se-ok's fault. Returning to the present, he gritted his teeth, silently making a resolution in his heart. "I've spent 45 years repeating this hundreds of times, preparing, all just to save you in the end." With that thought, Min Se-ok walked to the doorknob. His gaze was sharp as he stepped outside. "This time I absolutely cannot make a single mistake." But the unexpected happened. Outside, countless zombies were approaching. They were piled on top of each other like a mountain, shoving their way towards Min Se-ok's house. It was a sea of the undead. He was still in utter shock. His eyes narrowed in disbelief. Looking at the scene before him, for the last 45 years, I've thought of tens of thousands of scenarios, but not once. For a moment, Min Se-ok was plunged into despair. Did I think of this? He remembered the scenes from before, because in all 99 previous attempts, a situation like this never happened. Returning to the present, the horde of zombies rushed madly towards Min Se-ok. The scene was horrifying. Every single one of them looked as if they had been starved for years. Min Se-ok could only stand there frozen in place. Something so obvious that I never even considered it. He was still paralyzed with shock. The claws were already lunging for his face as he stared at them. Min Se-ok berated himself. There were no zombies behind the door. Dami's terrified scream snapped him back to reality. "Dad!" Snapping out of his trance, he immediately shoved her back into the house. The powerful shove sent Dami stumbling backward. As Min Se-ok began to close the door, he took one last look at his daughter. Dami, bewildered, could only stare back at her father with wide eyes. The door was closing. The horrifying realization dawned on her, her eyes widening in terror. The door slammed shut and Dami let out a terrified scream. She immediately rushed to the door. "Dad! Dad, what are you doing?" Frantic with worry, she pounded on the door relentlessly. "Open the door! Dad, hurry up!" But ignoring Dami's screams, he held the door fast, his resolve unshaken. Despite the horde of zombies swarming him from behind, the zombies were already tearing at his flesh. Pain contorted Min Se-ok's face, his brow furrowed as veins bulged on his forehead. Dami's heart-wrenching sobs were endless. He had already experienced the gut-wrenching pain of losing a child. And though the pain was soul-crushing, Min Se-ok held the door. 99 times he had felt this gut-wrenching agony of death. Min Se-ok had grown familiar with it. A memory from long ago suddenly surfaced. A tiny, adorable Dami back when she was just a baby nestled in her bassinet. Back then, Min Se-ok's face was a picture of pure happiness. He looked at his daughter as if she were his very reason for living. And so in the present, a gentle smile touched Min Se-ok's lips as he reached for the door. "Don't cry anymore, my daughter." And then his consciousness began to fade. Images from his past lives flashed before his eyes. Perhaps this was truly the end. Will I die for good this time? But just then Min Se-ok slammed his foot down. "No, for my daughter I can do anything." It was as if Min Se-ok's strength had been amplified. He gritted his teeth single-handedly, bearing the weight of the entire horde. The look in his eyes had changed. "Even if I die 100, 1,000 times, it doesn't matter." But the living dead continued to chew on his body. "But as long as you're alive..." Min Se-ok threw his head back and screamed, "I can't possibly die." Immediately after, His entire body surged with strength. With bulging muscles, he threw the horde of zombies off with both hands. A bald zombie struggled to its feet. It let out a few growls, and with its mouth agape it lunged at Minseok once more. But it was as if he had been granted a new power. With a single swipe, he took off its head. And just like that, he single-handedly massacred the entire horde. Suddenly, a blonde-haired zombie leaned in and sank its teeth into his shoulder. You've just provoked someone who's already lost their mind. Minseok went even more berserk, turning back and tearing into its shoulder with his teeth. At this point, Minseok looked no different from one of the living dead, having lost all consciousness. He then delivered a straight punch to the gut of a zombie that was trying to lunge at him. Simultaneously, 3 of them were sent flying into the air by Minseok. A single punch to the neck was enough to send its head clean off. Another horde of zombies appeared, their attention focused in one direction. It was as if Minseok was in a completely different body, with bulging muscles and a chiseled six-pack. He stood with his head bowed, looking down at the dead zombies littered at his feet. Minseok silently glanced back, a murderous red glint flashing in his eyes. The horde of zombies immediately opened their mouths and growled. Inside, Dami, too weak to keep pounding on the door, sank blankly to the floor. Suddenly, the door creaked open, letting a sliver of light in. Dami's face was drenched in tears as she looked up. Minseok walked in looking like a different person. Failure on the 100th try, and I was given another chance. He opened his mouth slightly. Don't worry, Dami. Even if I'm not human anymore, I will still protect you until the very end. His entire body was a mess of wounds and his eyes were blood red. But facing Dami, he still managed to smile and asked, Are you okay, my daughter? Before long, it was the 7th day since the zombie pandemic began. At this time in Mapo District, Soul Night had fallen, blanketing the entire city. Inside a house, a yellow light was on. A soldier looked on confused. Damn it! What is this? It turned out Minseok and Dami had arrived. The entire squad of soldiers pointed their guns at the 2 of them. Who are you? They couldn't understand. There are zombies everywhere. What the hell are you? To have survived and made it all the way here? The bald-headed soldier glared, veins bulging on his face. Do I have to put a hole in your head for you to start talking? Suddenly he froze. Hey, what's wrong with your face? A thought flashed through his mind, leaving him stunned. Could it be? Minseok was wearing a pair of sunglasses, perhaps to hide his own red eyes. But the bald soldier thought of another possibility. Are you a celebrity or something? Why are you wearing sunglasses? But Minseok remained silent, not answering, which made the man a little angry. Suddenly someone else appeared. She was from the Tejo squad. Nicknamed Black Widow, former Captain Cha Hyeri. She stood imposingly, looking coldly at the 2 of them, and uttered a single word. Scram. Hyeri slowly approached Minseok. There's no more room here, so find somewhere else to go. She leaned in fiercely, her face close to his. Didn't you hear me? I said get lost. Suddenly, Hyeri froze, looking at him with a confused expression. This is when Minseok began to put on an act. He gestured toward Dami. My little girl has been wandering the streets for a whole week. Her asthma is acting up again. Doesn't she look miserable? Please, I'm begging you, help me save her. Minseok squeezed his eyes shut, channeling his inner Hollywood actor. If you really can't, please just take my daughter. Please, I'm begging you. Hearing this, Dami's eyes widened in astonishment. Hyeri's expression softened as she watched his performance. Then she gritted her teeth, her brow furrowing. The bald soldier couldn't help but remark, Is this bastard crazy? Then he also stepped forward. He must think a little emotional plea is enough to sway our captain, trying to play the sympathy card at a time like this. But the unbelievable thing was, Hyeri was actually moved. She looked at the 2 of them so touched that tears welled up in her eyes. Then she turned and ordered, let them in. Even so, Hyeri maintained her cold expression. Don't get the wrong idea. I just need more people to protect this supermarket. Someone gently reminded her, you might want to wipe your nose first. Minseok watched her retreating figure. Behind her, the soldier followed, chattering away about something. He was silent for a moment. Then a smile spread across his face. You haven't changed a bit, have you, Captain Cha Hyeri? At the gathering point for surviving soldiers in Mapo District, the soldier guarding the supermarket was as cold as a venomous snake. But strangely, whenever she was faced with a parent's sacrifice, she was always easily swayed. Just then, Dami suddenly yelled in anger, Dad! She was extremely annoyed, her words full of reproach. What was that just now? That was completely different from our original plan. He quickly tried to explain. No, it's not like that, Dami. It's not what you think. Suddenly, the soldier looked at them and yelled, You 2 follow me! Seeing this, Dami immediately went back into character as an asthma patient. He sighed wearily, Just stop it. Then she feigned a look of pain, clutching her head, which clearly annoyed him. Stop messing around. At this, Minseok quickly pulled her into his arms. Looking at Dami, he thought to himself, Dami's mental state is deteriorating faster than usual. She needs to rest soon or it'll be dangerous. This is due to 2 variables, the event that happened a week ago, and my own body which is hard to understand. Minseok himself, despite being bitten by a zombie, had survived. He was even strong enough to overpower them. A thought flashed through his mind. This body has changed to the point of being unfamiliar. I'm not the same person I used to be. Could it be that I've become a zombie? The scene changes to the Hapjeong branch of a supermarket. The optimal route for survival. The initial phase. Minseok surveyed his surroundings. Plenty of essential supplies. The only place with remaining defensive forces. He glanced over at a certain spot. Here, Dami. Shan will be safe. And then, Minseok began to wonder, why did the building next door collapse? That's never happened before. This made the soldier suspicious. The way you talk is strange. Are you from the future? But then he continued his story. 3 days ago, the zombies swarmed in. Yeri was fighting tirelessly, guns blazing against the horde. Our captain single-handedly lured them to the building next door. She rappelled over to the building where 2 soldiers were waiting. Below, the horde of zombies was swarming like a broken beehive. And then she activated the pre-planted explosives to level the entire building and all of them with it. As he spoke, he spat on the ground. They're probably all dried squid by now. Those bastards might have been lucky enough to have a few survivors, but they'll just be trapped in there rotting away and rot away. Suddenly, his attention shifted to Minseok. He looked incredibly tense, his eyes cautiously scanning ahead. Seeing this, the soldier sneered, What's with that look? Don't tell me you actually think a zombie could crawl out of that rubble. Seriously, he taunted. Little did he know a real zombie was right behind him, and a giant one at that. Sensing something, the soldier slowly turned his head, and what he saw was a jackpot of horror, a zombie 10 times the normal size. The man froze on the spot for a moment. Before he could even panic, it had already started to raise its massive, rotting hand. It clenched its hand into a fist and brought it down with incredible speed, smashing it straight down and sending dirt and rocks flying everywhere. Hearing the noise, Yeri rushed to the scene. The giant hand quickly changed direction, swinging towards her. But she wasn't going down that easily. Yeri nimbly leaped to one side. The soldiers guarding the door immediately panicked. A zombie. What is that thing and where did it come from? By now, Yeri had reached Dami and Minseok. She then shouted a command. All units open fire. On her order, the entire team immediately opened continuous fire, but the massive zombie remained standing despite taking countless bullets. It tilted its face to the sky and let out a deafening roar. In no time, the giant zombie was right in front of the soldiers. With just one swipe of its hand, it had taken out countless soldiers. One remaining survivor was paralyzed with fear. He sat slumped on the ground. But the living dead showed no intention of letting him go. It drew back both its hands. Suddenly, a supply bag flew by. Yeri had appeared just in time. She quickly pulled the young man out of harm's way. Yeri pinned him to the ground, yelling, "Snap out of it. Do you want to die?" The terrified soldier stammered, Yes, ma'am." But she was just as terrified. That wasn't an option focus. Yeri, this is completely different from 3 days ago. That thing is not a normal zombie. With that thought, Yeri raised her guard and looked back. She immediately shouted, "Get to the supermarket now!" And so the 4 of them sprinted at full speed towards the supermarket. Suddenly, Minseok spoke up again. Wait a minute. But Yeri quickly cut him off. Quiet. Just run. He glanced over at his daughter, who was in pain and exhausted. Instantly, Minseok stopped in his tracks, his brow furrowing tightly. Without another word, Minseok turned and headed straight for the zombie. He gritted his teeth in fury, pouring all his strength into his fists, heading for the fence surrounding the supermarket. Lure it there. Yeri was sweating. Whatever that thing is, it can't break through in one go. We can use that time to find its weak spot. But suddenly she stopped in her tracks. Wait a minute. Yeri was standing before a group of survivors. What? There are still people on the first floor. They were all terrified, from the elderly to the children. She kept asking herself, the evacuation should have been completed a long time ago, and so Yeri skidded to a halt. Damn it! She immediately turned back, her expression resolute. I'll find a way to get its attention. The 3 of you get inside now. But she suddenly stopped when she only saw Dami. Yeri yelled, Why are you by yourself? Where's your father? Her eyes widened in disbelief. Don't tell me he abandoned his daughter and ran away. She was about to continue with a curse, that bastard, when suddenly Dami pointed to the side. Seeing this, she froze, unable to say another word. Then she followed the little girl's gaze, only to see Minseok locking his hands together. And then he brought them straight down on the zombie's head. Blood splattered everywhere. The zombie was taken down in an instant single-handedly. One of Minseok's hands was covered in blood. He raised his hand again. Everyone, including Yeri, stared at the scene, their eyes wide with horror. The father inside the door immediately took his hand and covered his daughter's eyes. The zombie let out a few pathetic screams, and with them blood sprayed everywhere. A moment later, its hand lay motionless on the ground. Minseok stood firm on top of the zombie's corpse. After beating it to a pulp, he stood panting, exhausted. Yeri quickly approached him. her gun still in her hand. In front of the astonished crowd, Min Seok suddenly spoke. "I'm sorry." He continued to look at his daughter. "The promise between Dad and Dami? I couldn't keep it." He gave a strained smile, looking away because I was afraid you'd get hurt. Dad was scared. Unexpectedly, Hyeri raised her gun and aimed it straight at him. She frowned, her voice laced with alarm. "Who are you really?" He wasn't afraid, simply raising his hands slowly. Then he adjusted his glasses and introduced himself. On the other side, Dami watched him with worry. "Don't." But Min Seok continued, "I am Dami's father," and the more she heard, the more frantic she became. She silently pleaded, "Please, no, Dad. If you reveal your identity here, you'll be in danger." Just then, Min Seok shot a sharp look at Hyeri and uttered one word, "Zombie, an expert on zombies." The words had barely left his mouth when the air fell silent. Both Dami and Hyeri were stunned. They repeated in unison, "An expert," paying them no mind. Min Seok continued, "After the zombies appeared, I have been thoroughly analyzing their characteristics and weaknesses in order to survive." He smiled, confident and cheerful. "I'm so glad I can be of help to everyone. I look forward to working with you all in the future." After hearing this, Hyeri also flashed a disingenuous smile. "Ah, so that's how it is." Right after that, she pulled a knife from somewhere and held it to his throat. A terrified Dami stepped forward. "What are you doing?" But Hyeri only barked coldly. "Shut up." Looking closely at the zombie, she began to voice her suspicions. "A monster that guns couldn't even scratch, and you beat it with your bare hands." At some point, Min Seok's sunglasses had fallen off. "And those red eyes?" Just like them." Hyeri leaned in close to his face, interrogating him seriously. "Tell me, are you even human?" Min Seok then spoke up. "No." The guns did have an effect. Hearing this, Hyeri was even more confused. "What?" He continued to explain. "That monster was weakened by the bullets. I only finished it off. And then, Min Seok proved that he really was a zombie expert. An eater, a zombie creature created from the fusion of two zombies. Its destructive power is off the charts, but its most prominent feature is its incredibly high defense." He held up his index finger cheerfully, providing the information. "However, it does have one weak point, its chin." Min Seok's gaze shifted to the side. He silently mused to himself. Of course you'd need the force equivalent to a sledgehammer for it to be effective. He could explain that, but there was still one more thing that made her suspicious. "So what about the eyes?" He immediately leaned in close to her. "I was born with a melanin deficiency." It was anyone's guess where he came up with these excuses, but it sounded convincing enough. "So I have to cover my eyes." A gaze like that really does make others uncomfortable. Then Min Seok pointed to the knife she was holding at his throat. "So do you still think I'm a zombie?" At that moment, Hyeri was momentarily thrown off by his words. She gritted her teeth. Her brow furrowed as she looked at him suspiciously. There's clearly something off about this. Just then, Dami also stepped forward to pull her away. "Please stop," Hyeri thought to herself. But what kind of zombie would protect its own daughter? And so she let him go and turned away. "I'll allow it." Hyeri stood up straight and uttered a single phrase, though she still wasn't sure. "Come in." But she didn't forget to add a warning. "From now on, I'll be keeping an eye on you. If you're Mr. Expert." Hyeri stormed off in a huff. Looking at those who had been sacrificed, Hyeri couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow and rage. From a distance, two soldiers came running over out of breath. "Captain, are you all right?" She didn't answer, simply kicking the other soldier hard in the leg. A young soldier trembled, collapsing to the ground and clutching his leg. Hyeri, with a stern face, lectured them. "When an emergency situation arises, you're supposed to quickly evacuate everyone to the underground parking lot. Why didn't you do that?" The young man stammered out an explanation. "We were panicking, so we—" But before he could finish, she glared at him irritably. If that monster hadn't been killed, everyone in this supermarket would be dead by now. Hyeri was clearly furious. Her face darkened. "Let me see this happen one more time. And the one who kills you won't be a zombie. It'll be me." The young soldier immediately clasped his hands together. "Understood. Please rest assured." But she was still fuming as she walked away. The young man she had kicked gritted his teeth, watching her with a look of pure hatred. The scene changes to inside the Plaza supermarket. People were laying out mats everywhere. That was lucky. Min Seok and Dami were also there. As soon as he heard his daughter say that, he asked, "What was lucky?" The little girl looked at him with a cheerful smile. "It's lucky you weren't exposed." Dami sighed, exasperated. "You can lie with a straight face, can't you? I was so scared you'd be found out my heart was about to explode." But he was still very calm. "As long as I don't do anything too outrageous, they probably won't suspect anything. And Dad's not the type of person to use a knife recklessly either." Suddenly, Dami asked, "Dad, do you know that person?" He remembered the previous times. It seemed he had always run into Hyeri. But he couldn't reveal that, so Min Seok just came up with an excuse. "I can tell just by looking at her face." Dami then changed the subject, not probing any further. "But Dad, do you even know what outrageous means?" "Where did you learn a word like that?" From my daughter, of course. Me? I never taught you that. Min Se-ok smiled cheerfully, his eyes filled with happiness. Yes, you did. A memory from one of his resets suddenly appeared. And you've taught me many times. Dami was confused. Really that many? Suddenly, Min Se-ok stood up. You stay right here. Dad's going to get you something to eat. He stood behind her silently, watching his daughter and smiling to himself. He looked at Dami, who was now bored and playing with a strand of her hair. Not long before, the little girl had given him a pair of sunglasses. Promise me. Her expression was serious as she instructed. You absolutely cannot tell anyone that you've become strange. Dami was very worried about her dad. If people find out, they might hurt you. She frowned, genuinely wanting her dad to be safe. You have to promise me, okay? At this point, Min Se-ok had reached the distribution area. Dami's right. Then he started to think. If my identity were to be revealed here, he looked at the people around him. He knew full well that everyone would be thrown into a state of utter panic. A moment later, Min Se-ok returned. Dami, I'm back. But by now, the little girl was exhausted and had fallen asleep. But Min Se-ok didn't rush to wake her. He just gently draped the blanket over her. Suddenly, his expression changed. Why is this happening? The rate at which the zombies are appearing in stages, over 100 of them swarming the door, is too fast, and a mutated zombie has appeared in just 1 week. He sat there lost in thought. A speed I've never experienced in my 99 previous lives. That's what's making this situation a complete variable. Innumerable questions filled Min Se-ok's mind. Why are the zombies changing? His expression darkened noticeably. I have a bad feeling about this. Night still enveloped the city. Some places were already in ruins. In a deep, dense forest, a grotesque zombie with a long tongue suddenly appeared. It was several feet long. It was terrifying to look at. Not only that, but it had a lot of extra limbs. I can feel them. They're looking for me. Right after a flood of others appeared like a storm. They want to kill me and my daughter. It's unclear if my existence is what's agitating them, or if it's simply fear. But one thing is certain. A zombie began to contort grotesquely. Suddenly, Min Se-ok was there in the midst of the zombie horde. From now on, I am a variable to them as well. He approached step by step. So the whole gang's here, huh? Good. He slammed an iron bar into the ground. Min Se-ok had brought a small ladder with him. A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. Then I won't have to waste time looking for you. Looking at the swarming horde, he yelled out a challenge. What are you standing there for? Let's get this started. After speaking, Min Se-ok gripped the ladder tightly. Before the little one wakes up, he immediately snapped it in two. Min Se-ok's expression was one of pure determination. I have to finish this. Quickly, the multi-limbed zombie began to charge. The rest of the horde followed their target locked. One of them was immediately sent packing. Min Se-ok easily took its head, and even tossed it at the rest of the horde. With just 2 iron bars, it seemed he had taken out the entire horde. Not a single one was left alive. Suddenly, one managed to sink its teeth into his shoulder. It used its strength, and with one arm, Min Se-ok's arm was torn clean off. He wasn't afraid, only steadying himself on the ground. Then he immediately leaped high into the air. The arm that had just been torn off was already regenerating. At this point, he looked like a true demon. Min Se-ok clenched his hands into fists. His eyes glowed with a red light. And then, with one hand punching and the other striking, he beat the horde of zombies to a pulp. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, a few grotesque, long-bodied zombies emerged. Looking like something out of a horror movie, they surrounded Min Se-ok. Each one was just as grotesque as the last. Their mouths were wide open, and from them they spewed a purple liquid substance. Suddenly, a tremor erupted from the center of the group. Dirt and rocks flew everywhere. These creatures were also thrown to the side. From within, Min Se-ok leaped high into the air. 2 iron bars in his hands. He landed, and in the process took out the entire horde of these murderous zombies. Then from somewhere he pulled out 2 other sharper weapons. Simultaneously, the entire horde was cut down by Min Se-ok, not a single one left unscathed. Each one received at least 2 or 3 cuts. Before long, he had taken them all down. Now he rushed toward the multi-limbed zombie. It quickly attacked first. Its 6 arms stretched out as if trying to grab Min Se-ok. But he wasn't going to fall that easily. With just 1 foot, he had crushed its skull. Taking a beating, it opened its mouth and let out a piercing scream. What are you screaming for? His ears ringing, he sliced its throat. After taking down the entire horde, Min Se-ok's expression remained unchanged. The word hatred was still clearly written on his face. Before long, the sun had risen. At the shelter supermarket, inside Dami, I was still sleeping. She hadn't changed her position from the night before. Just then, the little girl slowly opened her eyes. Dami sat up and stretched. Good morning. Suddenly, her gaze shifted to one side. Min Se-ok had returned at some point. He had bathed and changed into clean clothes. He handed her a meal. My daughter's awake. He placed the food on the ground. Here, eat up. Min Se-ok looked at his daughter and asked gently, You must be starving, right? Dami looked at him a little dazed for a moment. Then she also smiled a truly happy smile. Yes, outside the building the sunlight shone down on this place. Inside a room voices of complaint could be heard. Hey, are you kidding me? Inside was Hieri with a soldier. He was trying his best to report. I'm telling the truth. The loud noises were from 1 to 5 a.m. yesterday. You heard them too, Captain. But according to the young man, and the results of this morning's reconnaissance, all the zombies in that area have been eliminated. Suddenly, Hieri slammed her hand on the table in anger. What the hell are you talking about? Are you saying they all fought each other to the death? The young man explained awkwardly. I find it hard to believe, too, but I saw it with my own eyes. She stared down at the table, her eyes wide. The entire horde of zombies was wiped out in just 4 hours. What the hell is going on? Suddenly, she noticed something not too far away, and with that, her eyes suddenly lit up. Wait a minute, you mean... Hieri suddenly ordered, gather everyone. The young man, though confused, obeyed. Yes, ma'am. Her expression was extremely serious. From this moment on, we will proceed with the plan to withdraw from Supermarket A elsewhere. A man pressed his face against the glass and exclaimed, Whoa, for real, the zombies are all gone outside? There's nothing left but the houses and those bastards. There's no sign of them anywhere. A confused person turned around. Are they really gone? A woman tilted her head back and said loudly, I heard it clearly. The soldiers were talking to each other, and the sound of the zombies' roars has completely disappeared. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. The zombies are really all gone. We're safe now. Dami had also heard. She said to him, Dad, it seems like the zombies are really gone. Suddenly, Min Seok put a helmet on her head without a word. His expression immediately became serious. Dami, listen to me carefully. Later, you absolutely cannot take off your helmet, do you understand? She asked, confused. Later. Just then, Hieri's group arrived. Hieri raised a megaphone, pointing it directly at the crowd. She then announced in a clear voice, This morning, although the reason is still unclear, we have confirmed that all zombies in the area have been eliminated. As soon as they heard this, the crowd erupted in cheers. It's true! We're alive. Hieri continued, therefore from now on. She frowned as she made the announcement. And we will be evacuating this location. Immediately, the crowd's expressions changed. Evacuate! Hey, I didn't hear that right, did I? No, you heard correctly. There are no more zombies, so why are we leaving? Hieri continued, 3 days ago, right before we lost contact. We were in close communication with another unit, the 2nd Mechanized Brigade. This brigade is located in the Gangso area, and is believed to be the only surviving military unit in the region. They still have forces, battalion-level armored divisions and brigade-scale troops. And most importantly, they have the capacity to take in civilians. Hearing this, everyone was in an uproar. You want to leave this place based on a single radio call? That's right, how do we know if it's true or not? But Hieri was unmoved. She simply said, You don't need to worry about that. I know better than anyone. Who was on the other end of that line? His call sign is Blue Hat. If it's him, you can all trust him completely. Even so, it seemed no one had unconditional faith in her. They started to get rowdy. Trust you, my foot. You want us to leave, based on a radio signal that was cut off days ago. Are we supposed to go out there and die? And so the two sides went back and forth. We have to go. If the zombies come back, we won't be able to hold out any longer. No way, I'm not going anywhere. What if the zombies don't come back? Suddenly, one man raised his voice. See, I knew this would happen. He looked straight at Hieri. That kind of emotional and reckless decision, if a man were in charge, would he have acted that way? Am I wrong? Hearing this, Hieri was furious. What? Just then, someone stepped forward and answered the question with a clear voice. No, it was Min Seok. He stepped forward. The zombies will definitely be back. The young man immediately turned to him. Who do you think you are talking like you know everything? Answer me. When Hieri saw him, she suddenly exclaimed, The expert! The person next to her repeated, confused, The expert. Suddenly, Min Seok looked at the young man and philosophized. Staying here is no different from being a piece of meat on a plate. For a moment, he was like a true zombie. You call that living? The young man in the blue hat was scared out of his wits. No, that's no different from waiting for the day to be eaten alive. After that, he also got scared and left. His daughter, confused, walked beside him. Dad, what's wrong? Another person stood in front of Min Seok. So if we go with them, can you guarantee that we'll survive? He replied coldly, there's no guarantee. Hearing this, the man immediately shouted, See all talk. Suddenly, Min Seok posed a question. So let me ask you this without the army. He asked a fatal question. Without the army's protection, do you think you can survive? Immediately, the rowdy crowd fell silent. Just like that, they all did a 180. Now that I think about it, I think Captain Cha is right. That's right. Without the soldiers, we would have been dead a long time ago. A few people also stood up. Let's go. It's thanks to them that we're still alive now. The whole crowd started to cheer. Let's trust them this once. Trust in the army, trust in Captain Cha. Faced with this, Hieri was momentarily stunned. In the blink of an eye, he had managed to change everyone's minds, and without any effort at all. She then discreetly glanced over at Min Seok, watching him. She wondered to herself, who is that guy really? Suddenly he spoke up. You don't need to thank me. She immediately yelled, when did I ever thank you? And he also remembered the previous times. In a disadvantageous situation where I have to persuade others, I'm all too familiar with that. Then Min Seok held out his hand again. Besides, this is for me and my daughter too. His hand was extended towards Hyeri. He smiled gently. Because I have faith that if anyone can do it, Captain, it's you. Hearing this, she froze for a moment. Then she immediately straightened into a serious posture. From this moment on, we will proceed with the evacuation plan, she yelled into the megaphone. I am Cha Hyeri, and I will get every single one of you out of here safely. A short while later, everyone was out of the building. The soldiers sat on guard, keeping watch. A convoy of buses and military vehicles drove in a line. Inside one of the vehicles, Dummy looked annoyed. She was still wearing her helmet and was sitting next to a stranger. The soldiers scanned their surroundings, checking the situation. Hyeri was in one of the vehicles, standing up to observe. A whistle sounded as a guide sign appeared. The young man driving flashed a smile at her. It's been a long time since I've crossed the Han River. It feels so strange. But Hyeri just gave a cold reminder. Focus. Her eyes were fixed straight ahead. This is where it really begins. Suddenly, the person next to her screamed, Corporal Shin! A zombie suddenly appeared right in front of them, followed immediately by countless others. They charged madly toward the group. Every single one of them looked ravenous and grotesque. Hyeri immediately got on the radio. Zombies spotted, commencing the operation. Civilians and C-Team moved to the right. We're going left. The vehicles began to split off. They were on the move. Zombie characteristic number 1. Their sense of hearing is more acute than their sight. The soldiers quickly tossed empty cans in another direction. The zombie horde that was charging them was distracted by the noise. They've switched to the cans. It's working. They're chasing this way. Hyeri continued to command, maintain your distance. Don't let them catch up. Suddenly, the young man spoke up. But Captain, looking at the scene, he was clearly afraid. The number of zombies is increasing. They'll be on us in no time. She looked back, her eyes wide at the situation. Move to the Shongsan Bridge. A moment later, the vehicle was on the bridge. However, the middle section of the bridge had collapsed. Zombie characteristic number 2. Hyeri yelled, a little further, just a little further. As long as there are humans, no matter the circumstances, they will charge forward. Now the vehicle slammed on its brakes. The horde was still running along the other path, following the sound of the cans. One zombie instinctively glanced over at them, but by then it was too late. The entire horde immediately slammed into each other, followed by a hail of gunfire. They were ambushed, their skulls and bodies torn apart by bullets. The ones at the bottom of the bridge quickly started to run over. Every single one of them moved towards one spot. Zombie characteristic number 3. A hideous zombie's eyes shot open, staring forward. Their backs are their weak point. Just then, Min Seok came driving in a steamroller. He rammed it hard into the zombie's back. His face was a mask of pure hatred for them. Here comes the steamroller. A steamroller, a machine that can crush anything with tens of tons of pressure, the flower of heavy-duty vehicles. And now Min Seok was using it to crush the zombie horde. Suddenly, 2 of them were in the process of fusing together. It then let out a monstrous roar, its 4 eyes wide. But no matter what it did, it was all over once it went under the steamroller. The rest of the horde, sensing the danger, had turned back. Hyeri's team, witnessing this scene, was also frozen in place. Wherever Min Seok rolled over, that place would be littered with the corpses of the undead. Inside the vehicle, he gritted his teeth, focusing on driving the vehicle. The scene changes to the bus carrying the civilians. In one seat, Dami sat next to an old woman anxiously clutching her backpack. Her gaze was downcast as she thought to herself, what? She remembered just a moment ago when Dami was admonishing her father. Why did you have to do that? He had only replied gently, there's no one else who can do it but me. Dad will be right there with the soldiers, so don't worry. But she was still very uneasy. But what if they find out about you? Just then a voice rang out. Captain Cha's team is back. Dami remembered Min Seok's words. He had cheerfully reassured his daughter, don't worry, Dad's just on a support mission. And then she looked at him driving the steamroller. Dad, you're definitely not going to expose yourself, are you? Dami was completely stunned by the scene before her. Suddenly, Dami yelled, everyone get back. Yes, ma'am. There were a few remaining zombies chasing after them, but they too were crushed to a pulp under Min Seok's steamroller. The soldier sitting on top shouted, let's break through them in one go. A moment later, it was early evening. The convoy of vehicles was still driving in a line. The young man sat on top of the steamroller, scouting the area. He smiled brightly and said, Captain Cha, we made it. 6:45 p.m. The entire 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade had arrived. The 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade, a unit that had survived for a long time in a previous life. Under solid leadership, It was one of the key strategic points that had to be passed through to advance to the dragon's embankment. At this moment, Min Seok was also very happy. And it only took 8 days to get here. That's a record speed. Suddenly, he frowned again. But I absolutely cannot let my guard down. If I act carelessly just because I've gotten stronger, the image of his daughter getting into trouble flashed in his mind again. Dami could be in danger. I will not deviate from the path. That has been proven in my past lives. This is where it truly begins. Suddenly, the young man leaned down and exclaimed, "That was on a whole other level, Mr. Expert. To be honest, at first I was a little uncomfortable, having to work with you, but it's thanks to you that we all survived." A man who had gotten out of the vehicle also looked at him with a curious expression. "We only found that vehicle. No one else dared to drive it. Did you used to do manual labor?" Min Seok replied cheerfully. "No, it's just something I've learned before. In this world, knowing many things is an advantage for survival." Then Hyeri and he also got out. "I'm glad everyone made it here safely." She cracked her knuckles and didn't forget to thank him. Hearing this, Min Seok was very pleased and followed behind her. "What was that you just said, the part after that?" She wasn't amused by his teasing. Hyeri immediately turned and yelled, "So noisy!" In front of the company, the battalion commander of the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade's 1st Battalion, Master Sergeant Lee In-hee, and another person were already waiting. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Captain Cha Hyeri. We've been waiting for you." Seeing this, Hyeri asked, confused, "You know me?" In-hee immediately explained, "Yes, I was informed that with the captain's abilities, you would definitely be able to make it here today. Colonel Cha said so himself." Hearing this name, she suddenly repeated, "Colonel Cha." "Yes," In-hee smiled. "He said that a stubborn female soldier would be showing up here making a racket soon enough." This made her face darken. Then Hyeri was as furious as a tiger. "Where is the colonel right now?" On the other side, Min Seok was trying to calm down a fuming Dami. In-hee continued to reveal, "He's at the back gate right now," because a zombie appeared there. As soon as she heard this, Hyeri jumped, both worried and confused. Right after that, Hyeri yelled. Colonel Cha handled it himself. He led the troops there personally. But In-hee was still very calm. He smiled and replied, "No, ma'am." She had just started to calm down. "Really? After all, the colonel isn't young anymore," he added. "Isn't that right?" In-hee glanced to the side, looking a little hesitant. His imposing figure, his strong physique appeared. The colonel handled it himself. The scene changes to the back gate of the brigade. 2 soldiers were on watch. One of them glanced at his watch and exclaimed, 35 minutes and 27 seconds. He then reported to Mr. Cha. "Sir, a new brigade record." Hearing this, he only let out a ho-ho and remarked, "See, an axe is still better than a gun." The zombie had been beaten to a pulp by him, lying sprawled out on the ground. Suddenly, he curled his lip into a grin. And this was the former commander of the Special Warfare Command. Currently, the brigade commander of the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade, Colonel Cha Punho. He looked at the zombie's head with great satisfaction. "Now this is what I call a satisfying chop." The 2 young soldiers were still afraid. "Even so, next time, please use a gun, sir." "We were here too. What if you had gotten bitten?" Hearing this, he laughed even louder. "This Cha Punho bitten by these pathetic zombies, are you kidding me?" Then he leaned in close to the zombie. "Someone of my caliber can tell with just a single glance." Punho's eyes never left it. "What their combat strength is." He then said loudly, "And you lot with your pathetic combat skills. What the hell kind of help would you be? You'd just get in the way." The 2 of them were also at a loss. "Sir, that's a bit harsh." It was infuriating, but he was right, so they couldn't argue. Below, Punho started to rub his shoulder. "My back is killing me. The saying old age spares no one is absolutely true." His eyes glanced to one side. "In this world, besides those useless ones, is there not a single competent person left?" "We can hear you, you know." Just then, a large zombie was slowly sitting up. Punho was confused. He turned his head to look. Even so, he didn't show a hint of fear. He simply asked a single question. "What, you're still alive?" It let out a few growls and charged straight for him. Suddenly, Min Seok's steamroller appeared out of nowhere. He crushed it to a pulp. The 2 soldiers here were horrified by the sight. "What was that?" Punho was also on guard. He gripped the weapon in his hand tightly. He focused his gaze forward. "Someone of my caliber can tell just by a single glance." Suddenly, Punho's eyes widened in surprise. From the front, Min Seok was slowly approaching. The murderous aura he exuded was incredibly dense. "How strong are these guys?" Then he also introduced himself. "Hello, everyone. I came here with Captain Cha Hyeri. My name is Ryu Min Seok. I heard about the situation, so I came to see if I could help." Unexpectedly, Punho gripped his weapon, raised it high, and prepared to bring it down on Min Seok. However, he quickly dodged the blow. The 2 young men beside him were horrified by the sight. "Colonel, what was that? Did you just attack a civilian?" A second later, he was speechless, even more bewildered. "What the—" Min Seok is holding the sharp axe blade with one hand. Seeing this, the young man was completely flabbergasted. Is that even possible? The men up above called out Colonel, but Peng Ho was still fuming. Everyone get inside and sound the red alert now. He looked at his blood-red eyes and declared, "This man is a monster." And so Min Se-ok also remarked, "Your eyes cannot be deceived." Then he called out his name, Colonel Cha Peng Ho. This made him incredibly surprised.
What?
And then Min Se-ok used his strength to snap the axe blade. Peng Ho's hand holding the weapon also froze in midair. Min Se-ok bowed his head. "I must stay here. And to do that, I have to convince you." The sharp fragments were still flying. But it seems that words alone are no longer enough. Peng Ho looked on in disbelief. "Instead, I will show you who I am." He was completely gobsmacked. Looking in terror at the person before him, Min Se-ok had already gotten into a fighting stance. He clenched both his hands into fists, in the way you prefer most. The Yaksha's code begins. But just then Peng Ho slowly spoke up. "In other words, you're trying to pick a fight with me right now." He started to get more serious. With one hand, he started to take off his armor. "I've lived this long and I've never seen a crazy bastard like you. If I were to care about such nonsense then..." One by one, Peng Ho threw his equipment to the ground. A powerful, murderous aura emanated from his entire body. "How did you know I'd find this interesting?" "Fine." With that said, Peng Ho leaped into the air. He shot towards him like an arrow. "Let's hear it. What kind of person are you really?" On this side, warning sirens were blaring nonstop, reminding the civilians, Code red, code red. All civilians please move to the shelter immediately." Hearing this, Hyeri was extremely confused. "Code red, what's going on?" "I'm not exactly sure about that either. I'll explain later. For now, please follow the protocol." From behind Inhi, someone was approaching. "You're Captain Cha, aren't you?" He immediately recognized her. Captain Kwok." Suddenly, he pointed his gun at the crowd. "Hyeri, if you're the commanding officer, maybe you can explain." She frowned at this. What are you doing right now?" Captain Kwok spoke with a serious tone. "The monster that attacked the Brigadier General at the back gate of the barracks. It mentioned your name." This left her stunned. "The monster? Who are you talking about?" "Ryu Min-seok," he immediately added. "That's the name it gave itself." "Tell me, who is he?" All the civilians became afraid. Hyeri repeated, a little confused, "Ryu." Beside her, Dami had turned pale upon hearing this. She was very worried for her father. "Ryu Min-seok, back to the one-on-one." Min-seok raised his hand and charged forward. He punched straight at Peng Ho, but he dodged, and the ground cracked beneath the force of the blow. Peng Ho wasn't just unafraid, he was thrilled. A single punch can shatter a wall like this. Then he raised his leg and kicked. "After all that, you still dare to say you're human." Suddenly his eyes glowed with a red light. He blocked his leg with both hands. Just a second later, Min Se-ok's figure had vanished. Out of nowhere, he had appeared right above Peng Ho, his face like a demon's. He gritted his teeth and glanced behind him. Min Se-ok quickly landed, his hand lunging for his face. Peng Ho leaned back and dodged the blow. He then threw a straight punch at his face. The two of them seemed to be evenly matched, standing face to face. At this point, Peng Ho gripped his collar tightly. He brought his face close to Min Se-ok's, veins bulging on his face from anger. "Hey, are you messing with me?" Peng Ho stared at him intently. "That last punch you held back, didn't you?" "You're going easy on me," Min Se-ok casually admitted. "Yes." This left him completely stunned. "What, this insolent punk, you dare to mess with me?" His expression darkened noticeably. "If I were to fight with all my strength?" His eyes looked straight at Peng Ho, with no hint of a joke. "I might end up killing you, Colonel." Hearing this, Peng Ho seemed to fall into a deep thought. His pupils constricted. "It's true. From the moment I started fighting him, until now, every cell in my body can feel it clearly. Min Se-ok was like a true demon, an overwhelming difference in power." Then Peng Ho pointed at him. "What is it? What do you want from me?" But Min Se-ok replied calmly, "I want protection." As soon as he heard this, he burst out laughing. Peng Ho's expression turned serious again. What a load of nonsense. "A monster like you wants protection." Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. Min Se-ok looked down, his expression sorrowful. "No, the one who needs protection is not me, it's Ryudami." On the other side, the little girl was in a state of panic. She was making a scene. And with her, Min Se-ok's words, "It's my daughter." Peng Ho's eyes widened in surprise, hearing his words. "Please allow me, my daughter and the people who came with me, to stay in this brigade." Then Min Se-ok knelt down before him. His eyes were filled with determination. "If you do that, I'm prepared to." He looked at him with conviction. "Do anything for you all." A moment later, night had fallen over the area. At the civilian reception area, everyone had gathered. A few people were gossiping. "You heard what happened earlier, right? He was clearly called a monster." It seemed they were referring to Min Se-ok. "It's been strange ever since we were at the supermarket. The way he looks just makes you angry. I heard it's due to a melanin deficiency. Think about it, a zombie's eyes are red too. Could it be that he's really a zombie?" Meanwhile, Min Se-ok was being held in a separate location. His hands and feet were shackled. His eyes stared blankly ahead. Min Se-ok was grim-faced. He silently recalled Peng Ho's words. All right, the people you brought here. We'll let them stay in the brigade. At that moment, he had pointed straight at him. But the problem is you, a dangerous man like you. How can I trust you? It turned out that Min Seok had proposed a solution quarantine. He repeated confused, quarantine. Min Seok calmly pointed to his hand. If you can't trust me, please lock me away in a separate isolated room. Returning to the present, his heart was filled with determination. No matter how long it takes, I will prove that I'm not dangerous. The moonlight shone into the room. I will prove it. Suddenly, someone appeared outside the ventilation grate, startling Min Seok and catching his attention. It was Dami. She had found him. She smiled playfully, peeking in. Ta-da! As soon as he saw his daughter, Min Seok immediately asked, worried, Dami, are you okay? She stood on a pile of things and replied casually, me. Of course I'm fine. Dami cheerfully continued. The alarm has been turned off. The soldiers are treating me really well. I even had to ask for permission to come out here. Remembering the image of the crowd pointing fingers, she remarked, it's so stuffy in the shelter. Suddenly, Min Seok spoke up. I'm sorry. This made Dami a little confused. Ah, he looked down, avoiding her gaze. The promise that Dad wouldn't get involved anymore? I broke it again. Dami. He remembered the image of the two of them and asked, you must be very disappointed in me, right? But suddenly, Dami gently tapped him on the head to snap him out of it. The little girl said with a pout, if it weren't for you, me and everyone else wouldn't have been able to get here safely. Dami. She smiled happily. She was like the sunshine that saved his life. So hold your head up high no matter what anyone says. Min Seok was stunned listening to his daughter's words of encouragement. I'll always believe in you. And then Dami looked at the clock, alarmed. I have to go, roll call is at 10. If I'm late, I'll get in trouble. Before she left, she didn't forget to wish her dad good night. Good night, Dad. He also replied happily, yeah, good night, Dami. And so Min Seok watched Dami's retreating figure. As she ran, she was still smiling cheerfully. Min Seok was no different. He looked up at the sky, also feeling happy. But then suddenly Dami, who had been running, gritted her teeth in sadness. She stopped in her tracks and a tear fell onto the grass. Even though she said that, Dami was very worried about her dad's situation. She couldn't hold back her tears. And on Min Seok's side, he also lowered his head. His face was pale with worry for his daughter. Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps approached. A person stood in front of him and spoke. Mr. Ryu Min Seok. It was In-hee and two other soldiers. He formally announced, the Brigadier General wants to see you. The scene changes to another location. An index finger points to a place on the map. Gupo Station. Many survivors have been detected. Peng Ho was pointing, holding an object in his hand. 20 minutes ago in the collapsed Gupo Station area, multiple survivor frequencies were confirmed, thanks to the sound detector. At the same time, there was also an additional strange, unidentified frequency. At this point, Min Seok was in front of him. Peng Ho continued, the key to this operation is speed. Too many soldiers could become a hindrance, so I will only be sending in an elite force. Then he pointed to himself. Me! And Peng Ho's lips curled into a slight smirk. His hand pointed straight at Min Seok. And you. This left him a little stunned, looking at him in disbelief. Before he could say anything more, he continued, you said it, didn't you? That you would do anything for your daughter. So can you prove it? At this, Min Seok unexpectedly broke the chains wrapped around him. The two soldiers immediately shot him a horrified look. And so Min Seok looked at him and asked, when do we leave? Seeing this, Peng Ho was even more intrigued. He flashed a pleased grin. Peng Ho bared his teeth and smiled. He gave a short reply. Right now. Min Seok was like a true demon. The rescue operation at Gupo Station begins.